Good morning, everyone. During the last year, I have taken up as an object of my practice mm, the teachings of the Buddha that are centered around what's called the middle way. This is interesting to me. I've never emphasized or focused my attention on these parts of the teachings intentionally, really studying and sitting with, even though it's my Dharma name. So it's been really good. I reflected for a time on the story of the Buddha as a person, as a someone inspired to take up a journey of learning and growing and understanding. And I see the print and the mark of these teachings, these understandings of the middle way, right through the whole story of the Buddha's life. And we know that this was a young man who grew up as royalty and had a lot of luxury, never had to cook a meal, didn't have to worry about what he would wear, always had plenty of that, right? Everything taken care of for him with probably to a much greater degree than most of us ever have things taken care of for us. And yet, in that situation where all needs are more than amply met, still suffered. And looking around at the life that he was being asked to live by his family and society, seeing all these people around him in the affluent sphere, in the powerful people sphere, all of them suffering too. And also going out and experiencing outside of the boundaries of the enclave of the wealth and the royalty, going out and meeting the other peoples of the land and seeing them also suffering. And these questions arising in his mind. All right. How might I be able to transform this situation? Clearly having a lot doesn't do it. Clearly having too little doesn't do it. Right? Well, he was young, a lot of energy. And so he went really hard into this quest, into this journey, and ended up practicing austerities, practicing asceticism, practicing in an extreme way, because the drive, the deep wish, the intense energy to try to find a way to alleviate suffering, right? And so even though he already had a sense of middle way, he still went past it and went to an extreme in his practice, and got together with other folks who were like-minded, and tried very, very hard to succeed in his meditations, in his spiritual awakening. knowing that all the clever thinking in the world, all the political, legislative machinations weren't working for these deeper questions. He had experienced that. So he had to find another way, and the spiritual life called to him. But it was only when he went far into that extreme practice, they would like hold their breath for ridiculously long amounts of time. They would deprive themselves of food and drink and sleep. Intense practice around trying to surpass or dampen or rid themselves completely of sensory material experience in order to get to what might be on the other side of that. And at a certain point, the Buddha got tired of it, and he decided to ease off a little. And it was in that moment when he really started to wake up. So in a very simple sense, the idea of the middle way is not too much, not too little, and not to be caught, pulled in one extreme or another extreme, right? That's the general idea. And that idea can be a kind of a guide for us in almost anything in our life. Because there's a part of our being which is very important to us, each one of us, which is, it's looking for something. And it's, in doing so, wanting to take a hold of things. And this is the very nature of thinking. It has a grasping energy in it. If you think about it, you see this grasping energy, and a thought, a concept, is like a photograph. It's like a picture we take of life. It's not life. It's an impression of life. Life is like the river. You can't reach out and take a hold of it. But we try, nonetheless, all the time. And it's the way that the mind operates. It's just what it is. And in some dimension, this can be very helpful. But when we grasp on too tightly to something, in other words, we go to an extreme, right? We really lose touch with the flow, with the movement, with the changes, with the reality of what life is. And so this idea of practice of the middle way is something which helps us soften that grasping energy and not hold on too tightly to anything in order to stay connected to reality as it manifests and continues to change and become whatever it is becoming, right? And not to live in our concepts, live removed from reality in our ideas about what we think it is, or what we hope it to be, or what we wish it were not, right? But instead to be actively participating in the moment, whatever this expression of life is. Yeah, and the middle way is just a general guide for that, always inviting us to check, are we sure, right? And to soften into, like the Buddha took a step back from his ascetic practice and relaxed a little. And then with all that collected energy of effort and diligence and practice he had done in relaxing in, all of that suddenly could bear its fruit and show him the deeper dimensions of life. So even in something as simple as breathing, which is something we focus a lot on in our meditation practice, breathing. The breath will breathe itself. And yet, when we focus on it, we tend to try to make ourselves breathe in and breathe out, to control it in some way, especially those of us who studied some form of yoga and did pranayams, right? Where you actually train to be able to manipulate your breathing in order to direct energy in a certain way. And some of you are like that, like me. Yeah, a few of us here. And you get so good at being with your breath that you don't even know that you're manipulating it. But there's a difference between controlling the breath and following the breath. And to follow the breath, we have to find it. We have to find it with our awareness. And it's this effort that we really make, but it's not hard effort, right? So we have the middle way there, not too much, not too little. How much effort does it have to tune in your awareness to where your breath is? Not a lot. But it's something. It's very clear. You have to decide that you're going to do that, right? Here I am. Breath is moving in, and I'm going to follow it with my awareness. And then it moves out by itself, and I'm going to follow that. But that tense energy of control and grasping, which is in us, which is in a way wanting to support and help and protect us on a certain level, can get in the way, right? And immediately start to take hold of the breathing. Especially when we hear things like, breathe in deep, breathe out slow. But maybe our breath doesn't want to breathe in deep and slow on its own, but we're going to make it do that because we want to be a deep, slow practitioner. All right, so I want to succeed at this. That sounds good. Let me make myself breathe in deep and slow, which is different from following the breath and being present with it and relaxing enough that your breath naturally goes deep and slow. Right? In both cases, we need effort. We need to apply ourselves. But in one, there's a lot more ease and relaxation, and just being there, that's the effort, rather than controlling and getting somewhere, attaining it. Yeah. When I follow my breath, and I'm really successful in following my breath, I have to stay very present and alert because my breath does all sorts of interesting things. If I'm good at maintaining my awareness in following it for a time, it usually goes through cycles where it's like in, out, very shallow, in, out, and then it starts to get a little longer, in, out, and then all of a sudden, yawn, like a deep opening, release, and I can feel that my breath is inviting my whole system, like there's a whole process going on in me of saying, let it go, and a layer of tension can just fall off of me in that yawning breath. And then in the space after that, it's like, so, like, where is the breath? And usually my mind is like, you gotta breathe in, you gotta breathe in. But my breath is like saying, no, not yet. I'm cool, we just had a nice deep yawn. And then at a certain point, it just gently turns in, out. Very spacious. And then it goes through that cycle again, in, out. It's like it's building up a kind of a reserve that can then ripple out and send a wave of relaxation through me. I'm not making that happen, right, with my applied effort, right? But I am making that happen because it doesn't do that if I'm not there in my following, in my awareness. And so the breathing that gets awakened by mindfulness, it's like turning on a switch, and it gets this power, this energy flow from your presence, from your mindfulness. permission to do, and the support to do what it knows how to do, deep, deep, deep down inside. Living wisdom inside, store consciousness inside the body. Yeah. So we see in there the middle way, right in the practice of conscious breathing. After about 5, 6, 7 times through that cycle, my breath usually just kind of chills out. It's like all that surface tension that's been in my system has been shaken off, let go of a little, right? And now I can just rest in breathing, and deep and slow becomes very natural. The middle way also invites us into the experience, as I was saying last night, of ease and enjoyment. It also invites us into the experience of acceptance and openness. Right? These are the qualities of our practice. Inclusivity, inclusiveness. It's not about I like this and I don't like that, but it's about being present with what is there. This sounds a lot like just how we describe mindfulness energy and mindfulness practice. And the middle way is basically that, right? For me, there's a kindness in the practice. It's just in it. It's not hard work. Requires my effort. I'm there. But there's also a kindness, a caring, a connecting that's happening, an illuminating of the experience that I'm having. It also invites clarity, like it discerns. It makes clear, this is one extreme, this is another extreme, this is one aspect of a duality I'm caught in, and it's versus another one, right? And I can see clearly, I can discern, but without judgment, without evaluation. And there's a difference, right? To see and recognize something, or to see and evaluate something. Saying this is better or worse. Our middle way doesn't give that judgment, doesn't give that evaluation. It just lets you see, well, this takes you in this direction and that takes you in that direction, and you get to decide, right? And I love that about the practice. Thomas Merton, I hope everybody knows who Thomas Merton is. Thomas Merton was speaking about meditation once, and he said, meditation is something that every person needs each day of their life. They need to be able to come into that space with enough rest, enough ease, enough relaxation, enough openness that they would be able to distinguish the night sky from the shoulder of the hill. And I love that image, right? Imagine yourself looking out at the horizon in the night, and the dark sky and the shoulder of the hill. They are there. They are both dark. They are both very similar in the register of color. But you can know that one is one and the other is the other, right? And you see that. And that's it. You just know that's the hill and that's the sky. Discerning. There's a kind of honesty in this, which is This is an interesting expression. Honesty beyond opinion, right? And honesty in meeting the situation we're having without shaping an opinion, which is generally something that we like or dislike, agree or disagree with. So without that, but the honest experience of what is that? To have that, we need the middle way. We need to be in that open, kind, inclusive, clear presence kind of space. Another way I've been thinking about this is more process, less attainment, right? This would be like almost something you could get into an organizational model with, right? More process, less goal and attainment, but more in the doing. So think of it like verb and noun. More verb, more activity, and less things that are established, that are done, that are set. And that's that invitation into life. This has been present in the teachings for thousands of years, this difference. So there's a thing called the 4 pairs and the 8 kinds of holy people in Buddhism. Some of us like these things, and some of us really don't like these classifications. The 4 pairs and the 8 kinds of holy people. And it really very much sounds like a judgment that evaluates the progress or the attainment of a person in their practice. So that this is referring to, maybe you know it as like stream enterer. There's a level of practice where we are the stream enterer. And that's considered one kind of holy person, to be a stream enter the stream of the practice. You have begun to take as the aim of your life the practice and the realization of your practice. The stream enterer. And then there's the once returner. And the once returner is someone who is moving steadily on the stream of their practice and transforming their afflictions and their suffering, and they only have to return to life, the cycle of birth and death, one more time before their awakening. Right? Do you feel judged? Right? And then there's the never returner. They're done. They made it. Right. And the arahat, fully realized. So these seem like they're judging us and evaluating the practice and the quality of the success or not success of our practice. But actually, that's our reaction to a system which is just meant to discern and to allow communication and skillful means to take place. But what's interesting to me about this is so that's like the 4 kinds, right? But it says the 4 the 4 pairs and the 8 kinds of holy people. So there's 4 levels here, right? But there's 8 kinds. And this is referring to that there's the idea of someone who is entering the stream and someone who has entered the stream. Verb and noun, right? Someone who is on the way to being a once returner and someone who has attained once returnerness, right? And this construct is all over the place in the teachings, inviting us to really notice the difference between when there's a grasping onto something as a thing, and that there's another dimension of our life, which is the doing, the process. So there's the noun and the verb. And there's these sides of everything. And to be aware of that, and to navigate that beautifully. I get to use the markers now. In our practice, we are referencing a lot through the Buddhist teachings the path to well-being, the Noble Eightfold Path. And I want to talk a little bit about this throughout the retreat because it contains some real gems. And the Noble Eightfold Path, you see, is a presentation in noun form. It's a thing, which immediately sets before us an objective, right? Maybe something to be attained. And you see how that puts ourselves separate from it in that dynamic. But when you do the translation of this language from its original presentation, you don't have to say it like this. And people nowadays are starting to translate it like this. Oh. The Eightfold Path of the Noble Ones, which for me changes the dynamic and the way I relate to this. Do you have a reaction to being identified as noble? For some of us, that word is like, oh, no, didn't the Buddha leave that life behind? Right? And it represents some kind of class. But that's not what's intended here. Beautiful, upright, good, wholesome, noble, right? Then this path is the path to well-being. Remember that. That's the context. The path to well-being for ourselves and for all beings. And so the Eightfold Path of the Noble Ones means that I'm doing something. I'm walking a path, right? I am expressing this Eightfold Path, and it brings well-being. It brings uprightness. It brings beauty. It brings grace, right? So, the Eightfold Path of the Noble Ones. I hope that you will feel into your relationship with that statement and find that you can do that. A path is not a path unless it's walked. There needs to be someone walking it. There needs to be someone in the doing. Otherwise, it's just what? It's just some gravel on the ground, right? But it's a path because we travel it. And so we are that traveler. We are undertaking that journey. all of the elements of the Eightfold Path of the Noble Ones. Sorry, I still have this habit energy. They have the word right in them, which is another one of these sticky points where we can get caught with our attaining, grasping mind, always wanting to classify, understand, and make correct. But right here, Sama in Pali, S-A-M-M-A, English version of Pali, Sama. Is in the context of that this is a path of well-being. So right is according to that. Not some moral judgment, not some ethical line that we've drawn, right? But it's right according to the path, or wrong according to the path of well-being. That is moving us in the direction of well-being. So if something we are doing is clearly moving us in the direction of well-being, right? It could be called right in that context. And that's what sama means. Right? So please don't get, again, drawn into this extreme duality kind of contrast of like there's right, that therefore there's wrong, and I'm going back and forth between extremes. Remember the spirit of the middle way, which is this space of openness and understanding and discerning whether something in me or around me is supportive or not to the path of well-being. And if it's supportive, then it's right on this path. And it's not so right if it's taking us in a different direction. So what might be right for one of us might not be the same right for another of us. But on the path of well-being, there's a lot of common ground there. And we can generally find a lot of meeting place with other people once we clarify that we are on that path together. Right view is usually the place we start talking about the Noble Eightfold Path, or the Eightfold Path of the Noble Ones. And opposite it, and these eight, is right livelihood. And on this side, if we start to draw a circle of all the other elements, on this side we see a radiating outward into the world. View is inside of us. It's an understanding. There, window. There's a window. Look at the window. The window gives you a particular view. It shows you what you can see and what you cannot see through that particular window looked at from where you are. Right? So this is, in a way, a directive. It's showing you a possibility, but it might not be showing you another possibility. And again, same kind of thing. You in the back there looking through the same window are not seeing the same thing that I'm seeing, looking from up here through that window. But that's view. That's view. Also talked about as understanding. What is our understanding of something? And that understanding is like a track that a train is traveling on. And even if you want to go right, if the tracks go left, sorry, you can't go right. He's going to go that way. and so the cultivating of a view which is harmonious with the spirit of the path of well-being is very important. Because if our view is not, our understanding of ourselves and the world does not support that, it's going to be very hard for us to move in our life in the direction of well-being. So the way in which we see ourselves, the way in which we see our loved ones, the way in which we see our society or other societies, right? It's going to determine a lot. And the first things that it determines are these next three elements of the path. I'm not going to write right everywhere. It's our thinking. In the old text, the next one would be called speech, right speech. I'm going to call it communication. Because I think it's more than just our words. It's the way we listen as well as the whole experience of connecting in a space with another being. So our thinking life, our communication, and our bodily action. So streaming out from our understanding and the way that we understand ourselves and what we're doing each day, the way we understand each other and everything, streaming out from that is the activity of our thinking, right? It follows that track, it follows that course, it goes through that window, right? That's what we see, and we're exploring that. And the wider that view is, the more we can explore, right? The wider, the deeper our understanding, the more clear and deep our thinking can be. And through that inner speech, right, in the thinking, comes our ability to communicate and the actions of our body. This is a moving from the inner life out into the world. And the cumulative result of all of this is our interaction with the whole world around us. And livelihood doesn't just mean how you make your money, right? Which is a very modern way of thinking of that. For me, I'm now using the expression, sorry, this is a little complex, but it's fun for me. I see this zone of my practice as the field of interrelationships, because I want to begin to express a view of interbeing in my action. And when I do so, I start to see that this is the space, right? Livelihood is referring to this field all around me where there's connections, interconnections. The choices I'm making about how I live my life, what I eat, what I do, that's the classic, what vocation or job you have, right? But more than that, the family you hang out with, the friends you hang out with, the sangha that you build, this is a field of interrelationships here. And so you have here this picture of a view and an understanding, which is a possibility now being expressed. See, if you want to get complicated, like field of interrelationships, you could say like, this is the enclosure of possibilities. And we reach out into the world through our thinking, our speech, and our action, and it manifests in this wonderful field of interrelationships. I'm not a bored person. The other three on the other side, which I'm not really going to talk much about today, are effort, mindfulness, and concentration. So there's an interest, all of this activity of our actions and our relationships with the world, our way of expressing our life, right, actually feeds us too. It doesn't just reach out and interact externally. All of this also feeds back as part of our energy, our effort, our diligence that is applied to our practice of mindfulness and concentration, which produce our views. And we'll come back around to these a little bit more, but I wanted to stay on this side today. This is known as the 3 actions in Buddhism. Actions of body, actions of speech, actions of mind. It was in the bell chant that I did last night. Body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness. It's there. These are the 3 realms of action. And I think we should take a pause right now, and I'll invite David to come up and lead us in some bodily activity. And we stretch for a couple of minutes. This is also a moment if you need to go use the restroom. Washroom in Canada. The washroom. You could step out quietly in the next 10 minutes while we have some mindful movement. But if you don't need the washroom, we can stand up. Do you want us to stand up, David? We can stand up together and practice some gentle stretching. Activity of the body.
Friends, can you all hear me? I'll invite you to just go around the chairs so that you...
Thank you. Can we listen to the sound of a bell? So when we talk about the Eightfold Path and the way that I was just speaking about it, I was wanting to simplify it, and I hope you can feel that. When I first learned these teachings, it seemed like so much. It's like 8 whole worlds you could invest years of study and practice in each one. And that was a little overwhelming, and I kind of ignored it. But as I practiced, I began to understand that they are not really far from each other. And we talk about, I was speaking about how this movement from our inner life and our understanding takes shape in the world. I mean, that's one way of just seeing this, right? And you kind of connect and blend all of those together. And then how all that activity also feeds us on the inside, and our effort of cultivation of mindfulness, concentration, and understanding, right, is here on this side. And it's to simplify and to put a gesture in this, rather than it being a whole bunch of things you have to learn about. It's what we do every day. Only in terms of the path of practice, we're looking at this. It's really important that this word is here. Because you have understandings and you have views that are the track that your train is running on anyway, right? But with the practice, we're cultivating a certain kind of understanding and view, a certain kind of thinking, a certain way of speaking and communicating, which is supportive for us realizing, right, this eightfold path, this path of well-being. And so you see inside, right, there's inside the one, you find the other. Right? And if you into textile arts, I'll bet some of us are, There's a thing you can do on a piece of wood where you put like little nails in a circle and then you put different color strings. This is kind of like the Eightfold Path, is like that. You end up with this sense, this beautiful sense of the interbeing nature, right, of all of these dimensions. And so on. And I want to talk with you about these three a little bit. Because they have so much to do with each other, and because they can carry all of the mindfulness and the insight, because they can carry the results of all the beautiful relationships that we're cultivating, right? Our actions can be very powerful. Our thinking is something that usually we hold in awareness as something which belongs to us. It happens quietly, invisibly, inside ourselves. I caution you with that. It's not isolated. It's not disconnected from the world. Every thought that we have radiates out into the world in some way. And you know someone that you're really close with, and all they have to do is walk in the room when they're feeling agitated, and the agitation in their mind is there, and you know it. You didn't hear them say anything. You didn't even have to look at them. You know they came in and, whoa, something's up, right? Our thoughts are a part of the world. They're part of making the world. The way in which you think about yourself is constructing the very world that everyone else is living in. The way you think about them is constructing the world that we are all living in. So what's going on in our mind has a lot of power. And it's also a beautiful thing because we can learn to think these thoughts and to think the thoughts that we would like to think. In other words, to act in the realm of thinking in a beautiful, uplifting way. We don't have to just follow habit patterns. We can learn this, and this is part of what our practice is about. Coming home to ourselves to see this activity going on inside us and get to know it. And as we get to know it, we get to become a part of it, very consciously, very intentionally. That's the third establishment of mindfulness, to be aware of the mind and the activity of the mind, to get to know it, and then to be able to begin to shape those thoughts with intention and clarity and purpose. Most of us, through much of the day, are being thunk. Where our thoughts are thinking us, right? They're just going and we're being dragged along. But that doesn't have to be like that. This is an action we can undertake. It's something that we learn to do. And likewise, communication, speaking. The way that we speak and the way that we listen to each other has so much power. We all know what it's like to listen to someone and they're speaking something wonderful, and it lifts us up. It makes us feel alive, can help us to feel connected and loved when we felt disconnected and upset, right? And so the words, they have the power to affect us, right? We also know what it's like to be listened to, and the way that someone listens to us, the way that they receive what it is we offer in our speech, right? Can do so much to bring understanding, to bring a sense of connection, or not. Or it can disconnect, it can become divisive, it can become terrible. So we can cause deep wounds and suffering with our speech and our listening, but we can also lift up and heal and grow together. There's a lot of power in these places, the mind, in relationship, in communication, and also, of course, in our physical bodies and what we choose to do with our bodies and how we hold them can bring about healing and connection and understanding or not, and cause terrible suffering and violence, right? So we have these very powerful activities that we are engaged in all day and some cases all night too. Like we have this, we are a part of making the world what it is. And I really want to emphasize that because I have felt so, it feels from one angle like a big responsibility to be like, oh my gosh, I'm either causing immense suffering or I'm alleviating pain, right? Like the world is made of myself, and what I'm bringing into the world is important. There's a sense of responsibility there, but there's also a sense of great joy and the path of learning and growing and exploring and discovering together how to be beautiful together. And we get to do that. It's not out there somewhere, and the world isn't being decided by other people. And what manifests on this planet is not being decided by other people and nations and people in positions of power and so on. We are manifesting the world, every single one of us. And the sum total of that's what you see out there. But if you could see without the lens of opinion of all of those supposedly reporting the news to us, right? But if we could really see it, yeah, it's made of these thoughts, communication, and action in the mind, heart, and bodies of each being on the planet. And we're all contributing to that. It's so wonderful. In the monastic training, the novitiate, when you enter the monastic training as a novice, you're entrusted to do this, to enter into a deep connection with every action that you make in your mind, in your heart, in your body. And you're given tools to do that. These tools are the practice that we learn and we practice also as non-monastics. But you train day in and day out to become aware of these different layers of yourself. The thinking activity, the way of communicating, and the way of moving the body and holding the body and caring for the body. And you learn how there's a deep presence and integrity that can emerge when all three of those layers come together. When body, speech, and mind are united, when they are perfectly one. It's really powerful. So, if you recall in the writings of Thai Thich Nhat Hanh, our teacher, he wrote about when he was a novice, one time he exited the room from his teacher's room, and his teacher called him back in and said, "Could you do that again?" All he'd done was open and close the door. But he said, "Could you do that again?" And from that moment on, Thai realized that opening and closing the door was important, right? And that he gave his whole presence to that act of opening and closing the door. Something so simple. But how do you do that? You need to bring your mind, your heart, and your body all together in that one activity. When you offer incense, when you go to offer incense at an altar, you're trained also to practice in that way. This is tricky with a microphone. No, it's okay. I'll figure it out. I trust in your ability to imagine this without a microphone. So, or maybe I can just alternate here. So, you begin already before you even get to the incense. You know what you're going to do. You have a view and understanding, and from that you're shaping an intention in your thinking. That now is this moment I'm going to be present and offer incense, which is a kind of a prayer. It's a kind of a way of connecting with the conditions that support your practice and inviting yourself into that relationship with all of those conditions that support your practice and inviting those conditions to you. So you invite yourself in, but you invite them in also. So you're having a kind of a deep communication with all of the supportive conditions in your life that help you to practice. And those might be named, right, depending on how you offer your incense. In the Plum Village tradition, we often say things like, to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, right? We want to connect and invite all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to connect with us in this moment and support our practice, right? And really what we're doing is entering into a connection with the capacities for awakening which exist in us and around us in the world. And we're bringing that in. So it's a kind of a prayer and a connecting moment. And you know you're going to do that. So already before you even touch the incense, you're already there. And you reach out, and as a novice, you're trained to you don't just go out and go like, oh, okay, time to offer incense. You know, you reach out with two hands. But it doesn't take two hands to pick up a stick of incense. But you still do it. The instruction that you receive is two hands. So you put one hand on the other hand. Both my hands are here. I'm not half doing this. I'm all doing this. And then you hold it in both hands. And you do this very complex thing with your fingers. It looks like this. Where you take all of your fingertips and get all of them involved in the process. And really that's not necessary. But there's an intention in it. And what it is, you're carrying the care, the intention. You want to get down into every detail that is important for you in that moment. So if your fingers move like that and it's something you've learned to do, then great. If not, just holding the incense, however it sits uprightly in your two hands is fine, right? So this is the gesture. Then you maneuver yourself in front of the altar. I'm going to face you all. And you're holding this incense in front of you, and you're breathing in and out. Your body is filled with the awareness of what you're doing. So your mind and your body are together, and then you bring in the words, the speech of the offering, right? And so body, speech, and mind are engaged in one action, the incense offering. In gratitude, I offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space and time, right? May you be present here and support this practice. May the fruits of this practice radiate out and bring happiness in many directions, however you shape your prayer, right? And that is the offering you make. And then when you place the incense in the incense urn, or in this case, the wooden holder, you continue, right? You're not done. In the incense urns in the temple, they're usually like a ceramic bowl that has very fine sand in it, and also maybe the old ashes of many sticks of incense, very fine. And when you place the incense, you place it upright, straight up and down, in the middle of the incense urn, and you stick it in, and when you let it go, if it bends, you take a breath and you take it again, and you set it in straight up and down, and let it go, and there it is. This is not haphazard. It's not, oh, whatever. It's, no, I really want to follow through and take my time and be careful. And not that I'm doing this right, but that I am fully here in doing it, right? So it's not actually super important that it stands perfectly straight up and down, right? But it's important that you aren't just like sticking it in there and moving on, that you are following through. I now move with this prayer into my next moment of living, right? When you're really present like that, not just with offering incense, but opening a door, doing the dishes, serving your food, listening to a friend or a loved one, right? When you're really present, body, speech, and mind together, there's a manifestation of the path of well-being happening. The right, the intention and the view and the thinking and the communication and the bodily action are manifesting in the world, and it's right on the path of well-being, and you're all there. It's so different from how we usually move through in our actions in our daily life, where our mind is off trying to get to the next thing, and we're multitasking this and that, and we're distracted, or we're overwhelmed, or right? It's so different to move through each moment of life with that care and that diligence. And this is making the world. You make the world with your restlessness, you make the world with your distracted overwhelmedness, with your anxiety and your fear, and you also make the world with your mindfulness and your care and your intention and your love and your prayers, right? They don't just go out in some other place and have no effect, right? This practice is a part of realizing what life is going to be like on this planet. So train in that, right? Practice in that. That's why we go slow. That's why when we walk, we say, let's walk slow, so that we can really back off from the habit of running and moving so fast and trying to get somewhere else, and be just fine making this one step. I have arrived. I'm home. It's like the end of the long day of work, and you get home and you put your bag down and you flop down on the couch, that feeling of like, right? That's your footstep. I have arrived. I'm home, right? That's the care with which you pick up that morsel of food at lunch, and you put it in your mouth and you say, yeah, I'm communicating in a beautiful way with living beings all over the planet through this food, and with the sun and the rain and the earth. And you eat with that kind of mindfulness, fully embodied, fully there in your thinking, in your heart, in your mind. So this integrity and presence that happens, right, when we really practice, we really drop into the moment and allow ourselves to it's this, remember the effort of the middle way. We're making a clear effort, but it's not tough. It's not hard. We're just bringing this beautiful, caring attention to each thing that we do. That integrity and that presence is so important and so powerful. So I want to share with you another dimension of this, which is that if we really touch the moment deeply, we also realize, we make real interbeing. A deeper dimension, a spiritual dimension of our life comes into the world. So using the incense as an example again. When I pick up the incense and I really, truly embody the incense offering, it's not just me that's making this incense offering. It's also my teacher. Without my teacher, I don't really know much about this. I might never have offered much incense at all. And my teacher had a teacher who very gently but clearly taught him how to open and close a door. Without that, my teacher wouldn't have been able to teach me about offering incense. And so when I really touch this moment deeply of offering incense, and I'm really fully present, Tai is also fully present. And Tai is offering incense in that moment also. And Tai's teacher and a long line of spiritual ancestors are continuing to offer incense. So when I really, truly bring myself into the present moment and manifest the best of my practice in the smallest action, like a quiet incense offering in my room in the corner each morning, right? An ancient lineage of spiritual practice continues to manifest in the world, right? And interbeing is realized. And the way my heart feels when I'm aware of that happening is so lovely, so full. And when there's no separation like that, right? Tai is not separate from me. My spiritual ancestors are not separate from this incense offering. When that river of wisdom and understanding and compassion flows into the world, I feel so good. I'm so full of hope and joy. I'm so full of wonder. And I don't get lost. I don't have to be lost in confusion about what I'm going to do today or how I'm going to do it or what's important or what's not important or what's the right thing or the wrong thing to do. Those questions aren't even there. Right? When we realize the truth of our interbeing nature, we are stable, we are free. It's so wonderful. Thank you, Tai. think that's enough. We'll listen to the three sounds of the bell before we get ready for walking meditation.